We're both throwing our papers around.
That was beautiful. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Clemson. I want to humbly acknowledge that we are located on the land of the Eastern Cherokee and Southern Iroquois. It's good to be here, good to be awake, and to be with you. My name is Sarah Summers Hoskin, and I'm going to be your worship associate this morning. Here at UUFC, we welcome all those who come seeking a spiritual home, whether this is your 100th time here or your first. If you happen to be a first-time visitor, we would love to get to know you. If you are here in person, please be sure to visit our welcome table, which is right outside the door here. And stay for conversation down the social hall after the service during our social hour. If you are at home and viewing us online, and everybody just turn around and wave, say hello, good morning. We would be happy for you to receive our newsletter so that you can learn more about us. So find us at uufc.org. I would just like to take a minute to talk about a few of the announcements. There's a lot of them on your back of your bulletin, so you can flip it over there. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things here. It's all good, though, so keep that in mind. September the 29th, which is, oh gosh, that's next Sunday, yes, is our 5th Sunday potluck. And this is returning now for the first time in a while. Following the service, we will revive this event, and we welcome a special visitor, Reba Cruz, who's chair of the CAFE. Did I pronounce that correctly? Is it CAFE? Cafe, okay, all right. Cafe, Citizens Advocates for Education, who will bring us up to speed on book banning, curriculum, and library issues. And according to a survey that we took in this fellowship, these issues are ranked high on our list. And so you want to make sure that you, those of you especially that are interested, attend this. And so please join us. Ooh, here's something fun. A collaborative service, October the 6th, and that's, yes, collaborative. That means working together, okay. So the Peace Church is going to be working with us, UUFC, honoring the National Coming Out Week and LGBTQIA History Month. This is going to be during our regular service, so, you know, this will be very special. This is October the 6th. And the service will be followed by a 2 p.m. question and answer panel. So that sounds really interesting. We would like to remind you that there's still time to register for the SCUU Justice Alliance, SCUJA. That's sort of fun to say, SCUJA, yes. The Fall Festival. Holly Ulbrich, when is that date? Where are you? October 5th, okay. So there's still time to register for that. So we are going to have people carpooling and going there together, correct? Yes, okay. Participants will address justice issues in South Carolina with 9 other UU organizations or congregations. And so this is an opportunity to get together with other people and other congregations and talk about social justice issues that are important to them. We also, one more thing, we don't want to forget that we have an opportunity table in the social room. You want to visit, just sort of go over there, take a minute after our service today to go back there and look at the different things that are available for you to participate in. You don't have to commit to anything long term. You know, you could say, maybe I might want to do something, or, you know, maybe it's just one thing, but we invite you to do that. And I'm also going to make a shameless plug for the hula hike, which is coming up this Friday, 10:30. Meet here, and it's going to be a hike into Fance Grove. So anyway, if you're interested, talk to me. Okay. Reverend Holly is going to give our opening words now.
Thank you, Sarah. I'd like to also extend a warm welcome to you. It is wonderful to see you on this first day of fall, although it doesn't feel like it outside as we get into the 90s again today. But I'm so glad to have you here, and I offer these opening words as we enter into this time of worship together. To live truly creative life, we always need to cast a critical look at where we presently are, attempting always to discern where we have become stagnant and where a new beginning might be ripening. There can be no growth if we do not remain open and vulnerable to what is new and different. I've never seen anyone take a risk for growth that has not been rewarded 1,000 times over. And in the spirit of entering into a time of worship, I invite you to rise in body, mind, or spirit to join in singing number 1029 in the Teal hymnal, Love Knocks and Waits for Us to Hear.
At this time, we would like to have our chalice lighting and words of affirmation. And I would like to invite Talia to light our chalice. As she does this, let's share in the reading of our fellowship's affirmation. It's shared in the order of service. We gather together in a spirit of love with justice as our guide. This is our chosen covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth with freedom, and to care for one another. Now it's our time for all ages, and Karen's going to share that with us.
As Reverend Holly mentioned, today is the first day of fall, and since so many Unitarian Universalists draw spiritual nourishment from the nature and the passing of the seasons, I thought it would be appropriate to share a whimsical little story about the autumnal equinox this morning. Our story this morning is called By the Light of the Harvest Moon by Harriet Ziefert and illustrated by Mark Jones. The harvest moon shines tonight. Everyone is still at work on Apple Hill Farm. The corn is ripe since late summer, and the men and boys carry the last of it in burlap bags to the corn crib. Around midnight, one weary farmer crosses the road and walks slowly toward his house. He will try to sleep, though the harvest moon still shines brightly. The cows and the sheep stand very still. They stare up at the orange-yellow ball, which floats at the bottom of the sky like a big round balloon. The animals talk to the moon, but she does not answer their low moos and high-pitched baas. The wind speaks, softly at first, then louder, swish, swish. She delivers gusty blasts of air over the fields and farmhouse. Orange, yellow, and crimson leaves swirl and twirl and dance in the sky until a cloud of leaves settles in the pumpkin patch. When the gusts subside, leaf people emerge from the pile. First come grown-ups, then come children, and then pets. The leaf people find a clearing and begin decorating tables with maple leaf placemats, golden mums, and pumpkin centerpieces. Shh, hurry before the children return, says a mother in a red dress. While the grown-ups prepare, the children play on a nearby hillside. They bob for apples, juggle acorns, string popcorn necklaces, and weave wreaths of gold and rust-colored leaves. The best game of all is stacking pumpkins. One boy says, "I can stack 6 pumpkins." I can stack 10, boasts another. Watch it doesn't topple over, warns a child. So, of course, too late. All the pumpkins roll down, down, down the hill. Catch them, stop them, the children shout. They chase the runaway pumpkins down, down, down the hill, right into the middle of a party, a dessert party. Surprise, sing the mothers and fathers, aunts and uncles, grandmas and grandpas. A grandma gathers the children around. Today is the autumnal equinox. The hours of daylight and darkness are equal, and fall begins. Fruits, vegetables, and grains are harvested, leaves turn the colors of jewels, and we get to eat pie! Everyone laughs. Then they feast on the sweetest treats from the fall harvest, pumpkin, apple, pear, and pecan pies. Under the light of the moon, a daddy raises his glass of cider and toasts the new season. When the last bite of pie is eaten, the leaf people pack everything up, join hands, and wait. Hold on, children, there is still fun to be had. The moon closes its eyes and goes to sleep, but the wind awakens from its slumber and delivers gusty blasts of air. Swish, swish. The wind blows the leaf people out of the clearing, out of the pumpkin patch, and into the crisp, moonlit night. The next morning, the sun shines on Apple Hill Farm. The farmer is in the farmhouse. The cows and sheep are in the barn. The leaves are in the pumpkin patch. Everything is in its place. If you look carefully, you will know the leaf people were there.
Thank you, Carol. This is the time we set aside for the offering in order to give toward the financial vitality of this community. Also, 25% of the undesignated collection each week goes to an organization in the local community that we partner with. For the month of September, we are partnering with Clemson Child Development Center. Each week, we'll also collect perishable or non-perishable food for the Clemson Community Cares Food Bank. You may also give by going to the UUFC website and using the donate button. There you will see options for paying your pledge and donating towards the organizations we partner with. Thank you for your generosity.
Thank you again for your generosity. It is your gifts of both financial vitality of the church, but also your many gifts that you offer that help make this place a community. One way that we honor that community is through the sharing of our joys and concerns, a reminder that we are not alone. And so this week, I've asked Sarah, as we do every week, to place a stone in this vessel to represent our shared community. And have quite a few this week. So we have a joy from Tom Hiebel that temporary handicap placard expired Thursday, and I'm happy to say that it is no longer necessary for me. Yes. That's good. Chen Fu Chen shares a joy that his son Wei and I have put down the spawn of wine cap mushrooms in UU's mushroom garden, a great circle dinner at Jim and Ellen Fuse as well. And have a joy from Modi that if you're excited for the cafe discussion here next week, then in 2 weeks there is a Read and Rise Fest today from 3 to 6 p.m. at the Pendleton Community Center celebrating Banned Book Week. It's organized by Pendleton Area Advocates for Intellectual Freedom and will have live music, a local author, indie bookshop owner, voter registration, and book giveaways. Sounds like a very full event. And then have a joy from Modi. Again, enjoyed Paula and Jorge's performance last Sunday celebrating Mexican Independence Day. Yes. I'm sure that was wonderful. Yes. Have a joy from Talia that mine and Maya's birthday party is today. So last week celebrating birthdays and birthday parties today. Yes. And Holly with an E, because we make that distinction now with two Hollies, that it is the autumn equinox with cooler weather, less yard work, and Clemson football. Yes, yes. Have a joy from John Haynes that just passed 19 gallons of donations at Blood Connection. That's great. Yes. And then a joy from Susan Pierce that Dave and I became grandparents for the first time last Sunday to Sydney Brian Fitzsimmons, born in New York City. We were there. That's wonderful. It's exciting. And I also want to lift up a concern and a joy that kind of pair together that Steve Afrigola is in the hospital recovering from kidney issues, and he's going to be in the hospital for a while receiving dialysis. But he's improved and moved from ICU to a regular room as of yesterday. And I also have joy and gratitude for Petra, but also others that have been visiting and making sure Steve feels well cared for. And finally, we add one stone more to this vessel, representing all of the joys and concerns that remain unspoken and tender upon our hearts this morning. And now, as we transition from this moment of community sharing, we celebrate the children that are here with us this morning by singing them out to their religious education class with Go Now in Peace. I invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation, settling into your spot where you are sitting this morning to hear these words. Let us pause now to look inward, exploring, if we dare, the secret places where motives are made and intentions live. Beneath appearances, what kind of persons are we? In the inner self, congruent with the one that rejoices with friends, assists the infirm, comforts the crying child. No, as we take inventory and remember mistakes we have made, impure thoughts we have had, schemes we have hatched. We know that all is not right within. We are born to inconsistency, not purity, and conscience is a dubious guide that leads us stumbling along the path of virtue. We are all fallen, all self-condemned. For time after time, we have succumbed to temptation and chosen lesser good, betraying the truths of ourselves, the truth etched indelibly on our essential being. This, then, is our state and our inescapable humanness. Let us recognize and not deny our imperfections, forgive and not condemn ourselves. May growing awareness of our mixed motives and morals increase our humanity and make possible lives of greater sensitivity, sincerity, and serenity. Amen, and blessed be. Today we have a hymn for our musical meditation. It is number 396, I Know This Rose Will Open, and I invite you to remain seated as we sing this 3 times through.
I would like to share a reading with you by Adrienne Marie Brown on her principle, Never Failure, Always a Lesson. People are like, but sometimes I do fail. And I'm like, no, we're failing all the time, but the framework that we have on it determines whether it's a waste of our lives or a component that helps us to learn. And in my own life, I'll have a moment where I lose my temper or I knock something over. The things that can feel like minor failures in life, and even at that small scale, I have been teaching myself to slow down in that moment and be like, what am I learning right now? What is the lesson of this for me? Why am I moving so urgently? Usually it's because I'm trying to avoid an emotion or I lost my temper. What can I learn from this? I've been repressing the truth. I've been repressing something I needed to say, and I repressed it long enough for it to build up into a problem, and now it's coming out of its way in group process. This becomes the difference between groups that feel like they're succeeding and those that are actually making a change, and groups that constantly feel like they're failing, regardless of what they're actually doing in the world. I see a lot of social justice groups that constantly feel like they're failing, are behind the curve, and it's like we're actually up against insurmountable odds. We have to pull off miracles if we're going to save human life on this planet at this point. So, we could feel like failures all the time, but that's not going to save our lives. We have to be learning from everything that we're doing how to keep improving and how to keep growing.
I'm like one of those Japanese bowls that were made long ago. I have some cracks in me. They have been filled with gold. That's what they used back then. They had a bowl to mend. It did not hide the cracks. It made them shine instead. So now every old scar shows from every time I broke, and anyone's eyes can see I'm not what I used to be. But in a collector's mind, all of these jagged lines make me more beautiful, worth a much higher price. I'm like one of those Japanese bowls. I was made long ago. I have some cracks, you can see how they shine.
Have you ever found yourself struggling, having lots of emotions that come up in response to mistakes or even failures? Do we need to adjust the volume? Can y'all hear me? Remy, can we adjust the volume on my mic a little bit? Okay, can y'all hear me better now? Okay. And I'll also try to speak up a little bit. So what I was asking is, have you ever found yourself struggling with a failure, a mistake? I don't know about you, but sometimes I get into these modes of kind of negative self-talk. Therapists once used the words of the coulda, shoulda, wouldas aren't gonna fix the problem of what happened in the past. Have y'all ever gotten into the coulda, shoulda, wouldas? I should have done this, or why didn't I say that? And those moments can be hard to get us out of that line of thought at times. And I want to lift up the fact that our stories are varied. They aren't just one thing. They're never just failure or a mistake. They're an opportunity. And of course, there are many stories out there of all of the different successes of famous people, whether they be athletes or musicians or actors. And there are a lot of stories out there that I've read or watched videos about over the years. And there's some of them that talk about their failures, their rejections, how many times they were told they weren't good enough, but there's some pretty famous people on some pretty long lists that got told no or that they weren't good enough. One of which was Walt Disney. He was told by an editor that he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. Can you imagine that? I don't know what my childhood would look like without the influence of Disney. Or Thomas Edison, whose teachers told him that he was too stupid to learn anything. He went on to hold more than 1,000 patents, including one for the phonograph and the practical electric lamp. Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first TV job as an anchor. During a commencement speech that she gave at Harvard, she said, quote, "There is no such thing as failure. Failure is just life trying to move us in another direction." And then Michael Jordan. Did you know he was cut from his high school basketball team? That's wild, right? Because he went on to win 6 championships, 5 MVPs, and is arguably one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He famously said, "I missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. On 26 occasions, I have been entrusted to take the game-winning shot, and I missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life. That is why I succeed." End quote. Now, these are just a few examples that we can hear what people say, what they tell us, and then be like, you know what? I don't believe that. I believe that there's something more that I can do, that I can take that negative feedback and turn it into an opportunity, or I can see something that I did that was not my best or a mistake, and to learn from it. If we gave up the very first time someone told us no, or the very first time we made a mistake, could you imagine how small, how boring our lives might be? If you never expanded outside of that initial bubble in childhood, to learn and to grow. And every day, each and every day, we have to try something new. And it's not necessarily a notable, big, huge thing that we do that's new. Sometimes it's simply that we got up out of the bed in a slightly different spot and our foot hit the bare floor rather than the rug, and it started our day in a different way. We notice the flowers that are blooming outside or the first crisp leaves, although this year maybe because of drought conditions, they're a little crispy and on the ground. But we notice the changes that are happening in the world around us, but they also are changes that happen within us that we can take note of. Opportunities to make success out of failure, to rewrite the narratives, to learn from our disappointments, to find deeper meaning. So I want to share just a little bit of a personal story with you. I'm going to tell on myself. This is a story that my mother has told me many times over the years. The first time I had a spelling test, there was a big flip chart in the classroom that had the words written on it. And my mom was trying to convince me to study for my spelling test, but I told her in no uncertain terms there was a flip chart in the classroom with the words on it. All I needed to do was to copy them. She tried to convince me that I was wrong, but I had to learn the hard way. I didn't do so well on that first spelling test, but despite that, I kept trying, and I do have to say I'm still not a very good speller, but that's due to dyslexia more than not practicing. And practicing once I knew that I had dyslexia was an opportunity for me to find new ways of doing things. I went from being an undergrad struggling to write a paper and thinking it was terrible to getting an A in seminary a decade later for my writing, which still flabbergasts me to this day. And I've had people ask to look at sermons, but y'all, I use a lot of dictation for my sermons, so punctuation isn't a thing. So if you ever want to look at it, you're welcome to. Just know what you're going to be looking at isn't maybe what you were expecting. So that's me telling on myself a little bit, but there's a lot of things in life that are sometimes small, insignificant things that can make a big difference in our lives. Sometimes it's things that are happening in the world or the way that we engage with it. So I have questions for you. Is there anything that you feel like you failed at, big or small, in your life? Follow-up questions. Did you give up? Did you try again? Did it help you discover something about yourself? Maybe it was that your life was going to go in a different path than what you expected at one time. It's not always easy to move beyond our mistakes or our misunderstandings in life, especially if we have people in our lives that remind us of what we did wrong. Has anybody ever had somebody that reminds you, whether it's a boss or a parent or a family member, that just reminds you of the mistakes that you've made? Like that story of my spelling test I've been reminded about my whole life. And I don't think my mother means any harm, nor do a lot of the people that remind us of these things. Sometimes they're trying to inspire us, to remind us that we overcame that thing. But reminding us that we can overcome the thing, not just that we did this wrong, but that look at how we moved beyond that thing, how we can learn and grow from our experiences. One of my favorite quotes attributed to Maya Angelou is that I've often heard repeated: do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better. Because y'all, you can't do the best of the somebody next to you, and they can't do the best that you can do, because we all have unique gifts and skills that we bring into this life. You know, Michael Jordan was one of the most renowned basketball players. But do y'all remember when he switched to baseball for a while? His career wasn't so outstanding in baseball, was it? And when we transcend one thing into another, we find that maybe it's not the right fit for us, but we needed to try it, to figure it out, and decide what works for us. So, I had someone mention this past week how they were excited about The Voice starting again, and it got me thinking about all of these decades now of music competitions in which singers perform and compete against one another, and how some of those performers from American Idol and The Voice went on to have hugely successful careers. Some of them weren't the winners of their seasons, though, and others just kind of faded, and we didn't hear more about them. Although I went poking around to see what I could find on the internet, and it was interesting that some of them worked for organizations that promote music in schools or became music teachers and did things that aren't out in the public eye as much, but that still have an impact on music. And each of those singers have different skills, have different paths that they take. Just like sports, there are different skills. And sometimes people are born with innate abilities in a particular area, which is beautiful and wonderful. And even when they have those innate skills, it still requires practice. Because, you know, when our choir sings, they've practiced on Mondays and they practice on Sunday mornings before you hear them. And they perform beautifully for us. And big music stars, they don't just get out there with their rough voice, not warmed up, not practiced, and sing the most amazing song ever. Usually there's some prep, making some noises to move things around in your throat. Now, these are some big examples, but mistakes aren't always so large. Sometimes it's the thing that we said or that we didn't say. Maybe it's the word that we used that maybe is not the best word, because our language changes, and certain ones have different connotations for different communities around ageism, ableism, around racism, all of the isms. There are different words and terminologies that aren't wonderful for us to use, and sometimes people get caught up in stories and reuse words that aren't the greatest. I know that I've been guilty of that at least once or twice in my life, earlier on especially. But we all make mistakes because we're human. And I asked last week or week before if anybody was perfect, and I didn't see any hands. And that's because we are human and we make mistakes. And the beautiful thing is that we can learn from them. And this is true in our individual lives, in our close relationships with our friends, our families, our coworkers. And It's an extension here in a congregational setting like this one, because relationships exist here. Care for one another exists here. And part of the reason that we have covenants as Unitarian Universalism is because they're promises that we make to each other. And I don't mean just like the big national level covenants. I mean the covenants here at this congregational level, like the one that we're going to use for our new member service next week to remind us all of the covenants that we share, the brief affirmation, which lifts up some of the key components of our covenants. And the importance of them is that they create a foundation. So when something happens, we don't crumble under the pressure. And now that's not to say that covenants can't be misused or abused and used in punitive ways or finger waving and saying, you shouldn't have done that, because again, we're human and sometimes things aren't used in the ways that we mean for them to be used. But the goal is repair. And so the song that you heard earlier from Peter Mayer about the Japanese bowl mentioned how the cracks were filled with gold, not to erase the cracks, but to highlight them as a way for us to learn, recognizing that this thing happened, not erasing it. And so there's this correlation between mistakes and covenants and the bowls and the gold that there is. And I did not plan this, but I went and looked for an article about covenant that I had thought of, that I had read long ago, and I couldn't find it. But I read a new article written by Sana Saeed, and sometimes my tablet is wonderful, and sometimes it scrolls on me when I did not expect it to. But in this article that she wrote, I'm going to share a little bit longer quote, so bear with me in that, because she elucidates some words that were rolling around in my mind as I prepared this, and I'm like, I didn't even know this existed, but it's really cool that it ties in with the use of Japanese bowl as the music. Because she said, our conversations around covenant making can be playful, tense, messy, joyful, complicated, and all of those things are normal. But I find people get stuck on making the perfect covenant, or they try to create a covenant where people must live up to the ideal of perfectionism. It's about a deeper promise that you're committing to hold yourselves to when things get hard. We are not perfect people. We all have scars that we carry. A covenant needs to hold all the complexity we bring as humans into these spaces. Sometimes, when we break promises, we break each other's hearts. Sometimes we inherit broken hearts because of generational trauma passed down to us. But we also inherit covenants covered in gold repairs, signs of our unique growth and stories as humans. So friends, think of what you would like, what it would be like living and knowing that covenants you have committed to are like a cracked, illuminated, healed dish covered in gold cracks, highlighting the beauty of the ways we come back together into our beloved community. May that thought give us hope and ground us in resilience, knowing that we can do the work of liberation rigorously if it means we can all be free. End quote. Now, growth is not always easy. Do any of you remember, anybody here have growing pains, hurts and aches in your body as you grew through puberty or as you started experiencing maybe nerve pain or arthritis or other things at different stages in our lives? It wasn't the easiest thing to deal with. So growth, when it comes from mistakes or failures, isn't going to be easy either. In fact, there are times it can be difficult and even painful. It takes willingness to move through a period of discomfort. The fact that we are here, that we as humans continue to exist, and that we continue to live in these spaces and be in community together is a testament to our resilience. I am continuously amazed by nature and its ability to exist even in the face of adverse conditions. Have you ever seen a tree or a flower growing out of concrete, out of a sidewalk? Or a tree that has toppled over but still remains rooted somehow at this new position, sometimes leaning up against the trunk of another tree. Sometimes bent, sometimes even broken. Life continues. The things that humans can do, injuries that we can recover from, things that we can adapt to, adaptive devices that make life more sustainable for us. Relationships, like our abilities to heal or adapt for our bodies and minds, helps us through difficult times. When we fail or make mistakes, because we still make mistakes. Just because we did this mistake doesn't mean we won't make a new mistake tomorrow. It might just not be the same one if we learned from it the first time. They don't disappear, but they become an opportunity for us to heal and learn and grow and maybe cover those cracks with a little bit of beautiful, glittering gold. And I want to end with one final thought. There's a book called Mistakes and Miracles that was a UUA common read a couple of years ago. And in it, one of the congregation said something that sticks with me. They said, they stumble, but they are stumbling in the right direction. And they are stumbling together. May we find ourselves stumbling in the right direction. May we find opportunities to learn and grow from our mistakes. May we keep moving forward together, glinting beautifully from that gold filling the cracks. May it be so. May we make it so. And blessed be. You are now invited to rise in body, mind, or spirit, wherever you are, to join in singing number 131, Love Will Guide Us. For our closing words, I offer this quote: "We do not grow absolutely chronologically. We grow sometimes in one dimension and not another, sometimes unevenly, or we grow partially. We are relative. We are mature in one realm and childish in another. The past, present, and future mingle and pull us backward, forward, or fix us in the present. We are made of layers, cells, constellations. May we find that we are growing together in all of the dimensions in which we grow. Go in peace and return in love."